So music directing is definitely one function that should be talked about, researched for, prepared for, because you're having to deal with people from different backgrounds, and some may be easy to lead, some not so easy to lead. But regardless, you're being tasked with the responsibility as a music director to, harness the best out of these persons, regardless of the categories they fall into, and then deliver excellence. There's this mindset I've always had as a music director. That's the fact that the people I'm sent to minister to, the persons you're sent to bless, don't really care about what happens before the stage. They don't really care about what happens behind the scenes, the rehearsals, the sleepless nights, the countless hours trying to, figure out the best possible arrangement for that service. They don't really care. They just want to get blessed, right? So there's no excuse to explain mediocrity. There's no excuse to explain your errors as a music director or as a choir in general. You guys have no possible opportunity to explain why you failed or fumbled on stage, right? So I feel like that's one very demanding part of music directing, trying to make sure that you have anticipated possible scenarios for your success and the success of your choir. So in this video, we're going to be talking about these scenarios as well as any other relevant information that would give you an edge in music directing. So this is Victor Gabriel, and I've been a music director for a good number of years at the teens level, at the youth level, and currently at the adult level. So I plan on making my experiences available to you to achieve the best results possible. So I'll be right back. Hello, welcome back. So let's get right into it. Music directing. For us to understand what music directing is, we actually must understand what it isn't. And music directing isn't just about singing only. It actually entails much more than singing. We're going to be considering two concepts before you should even place your singing abilities afterwards, right? The first that I want to talk about is leadership. As a music director, you should understand what leadership is. All right. I also want to start by saying that you can't give what you don't have, right? What you have is what you give. And so before you become a leader for the people, you'd have to be a leader for yourself. Because once you understand leadership internally, controlling the externals would not be an issue for you. All right. So it's very important you as a music director or as an executive in the music space understand what leadership is. It actually plays a whole lot, all right, in the success of the entire body. Because if you don't understand what the concept of leadership is, then most likely you might not be able to maximize or harness the potentials of your people. When they are speaking or saying A, you're actually considering B. All right, so understanding what leadership is brings about synergy, from the administration of the body down to the body itself. So once there's an understanding of what leadership is, leadership capacities, leadership skills, developing your listening abilities, your hearing abilities, to make better interpretations when the people speak, not just only when they speak, when they act, certain postures, certain tones, you could be able to interpret right and then make best judgments and decisions. So leadership qualities cannot be overemphasized. When you talk about excelling in music directing, it is one thing to consider, all right? If possible, take leadership courses or classes. I feel like they are actually available and it's going to be very helpful, all right? So it's very important. And outside the music space, it's one thing to actually consider, because when you're dealing with a number of persons, you definitely should know how to lead and what leadership entails, all right? Also, I would want to add that being a music director does not make you a lord over the people, all right? It's actually a call to serve. So if you understand that, then you would know how important understanding leadership is, and then you go for it. Because that's one key to actually properly harnessing and maximizing the potentials of the people you are called to serve. So number one for me, leadership. One virtue you'd have to consider before your singing ability, leadership. So leadership number one. And then excellence number two, the virtue of excellence. That's one thing that should be considered in music directing. As a music director, you should ask yourself, what is my desire for excellence? And, we should also understand that excellence can be gotten on two levels. First, by impartation. All right, the Spirit of God can actually impact excellence on a person. But excellence actually can be learned, it can be acquired. That brings me to the second way excellence can be acquired or achieved, by knowledge. All right, what you call best is at the limit of your understanding. All right, you cannot want more or desire more than you know. All right, and that is why it's important that as a music director, you actually open up for learning. Never fail to want to learn. All right, whatever way possible. Definitely, you should have mentors. The fact that you're a music director does not mean you should not have mentors in what you do in the music space. All right, have people you look up to, have people you'd want to be like. Have people you draw inspirations from. All right, because what you see determines what you become. The higher you see, the more you see, the more you know. It broadens your horizon. It broadens your desire for excellence, what you call excellence. Your definition of excellence changes, by how much you get to know. All right, so excellence evolves. It evolves. What you call excellence today might be mediocrity for you tomorrow. All right, so it evolves, and that is why it's important you stay on the train of learning, the train of knowledge, of acquiring knowledge. It's very important. All right, so excellence, beyond the fact that it can be impacted by the Spirit of God, as you go, it will be, because the office of a music director, it's actually an office, all right? So there's a grace for that office. So the knowledge and wisdom to actually walk in that path will be imparted to you, will be opened up in your spirit. There will be a time for that. But beyond that, you'd have to learn. You have to know to learn. And also, one of the importance of this knowledge is the fact that, you can only, like I said, you can only give what you have. You can't give more than what you have. So you'd have to know more than your people for you to actually command their respect and teach them. All right, for you to make impact, you have to know more. That's the truth. All right, so excellence cannot be overemphasized. It's one very important virtue a music director should consider having. All right, compulsorily. In fact, before you want to look at your singing abilities, look at this virtues squarely. The virtue of leadership, understanding what leadership is, and also the virtue of excellence. All right, look at them. How has this virtues been at play in my life? Even before considering the whole music directing role. All right, they are very important virtues to look at. So number one, leadership. Number two, excellence. Of course, I talked about knowledge, as I talked about excellence. All right, and that's because knowledge enforces excellence. All right, so that's so three things. All right, we have spoken about three things now. We spoke about leadership, we spoke about excellence, we spoke about knowledge. All right, so these three things are very important, in music directing. So that reminds me, I spoke on grace for the office as a music director. I want to also say grace is not an excuse for laziness. All right, the anointing is not an opportunity for mediocrity. Where you should put in the work, you put it. Where you should exercise balance, you actually should exercise balance. All right, there should be a clear time for your rehearsals and for prayers. All right, no one should, go into the other. When you're supposed to pray, you pray. All right, you pray. When you're supposed to rehearse, make sure you rehearse. All right. There's one citing I'd like to make in scriptures, and for David was a skilled man, but also a man that communed, that enjoyed fellowship with God. So when he was supposed to pray, when he was supposed to seek the face of God, when he was supposed to be in fellowship, he did. And when he was supposed to play, it took skill for him to play for Saul. Saul never saw the extent of prayer, David was on. He never saw the level of consecration that David had. No, what he saw was his skill. But now when the skill brought him to the palace, it was the anointing that was developed and was produced from fellowship that walked in the palace, right? So these two things have their places. They have their places. So it's actually important to, remember balance. Yeah, so moving on. In 2025, you are a music director and you don't know how to play at least one musical instrument. Please learn. I cannot overemphasize the importance of learning to play a musical instrument. It makes everything easier for you. And then the communication of what you want your people to understand, it makes it a lot more easier. All right. It helps with a lot of things. It helps with key change, understanding key change, modulation, even personal rehearsals, and it's very important to understand or to know that as a music director, you must rehearse too. All right. The fact that you're a music director does not ban you from rehearsals, personal rehearsals. I mean, you don't just rehearse only when you get to church or you go for rehearsals. No. Like personal rehearsals, it's a must. You should. And one tool that helps you with that is, your knowledge of a musical instrument or having one. It helps you in a lot of ways. Another worthy consideration will be developing your people. All right, you're not just a music director to make service hold or to, make service go well. No. Because the time will come when you are not available. And so does it mean when you are not available, things wouldn't work? No. So one of the confirmations that you're actually doing a good job is to actually raise people. All right, raise people, make them confident also in themselves. Let them understand that they are all potential lead vocalists. All right, there are some persons in our choir that have relegated themselves just to being backup singers. No, you can't keep being a backup singer forever. You'd have to evolve to being a lead vocalist. Of course, not everybody would want to be a lead vocalist, or not everybody will be lead vocalists. But now what happens when an opportunity comes or there is a need for a lead vocalist to actually step up and then you're the only person on ground? Does that mean nothing will work? So it's important to be equipped in this aspects to actually have the mindset that you can actually be a lead vocalist someday. So you should train or sing as one. When you should do your BGV responsibilities, your backup vocals responsibilities, go ahead, right? Or you should also understand that a time can come where you'll be called upon to be a lead. So let them instill that confidence in them, all right? Build them, raise them up to be that kind of people. All right, so it's very important to develop your people. Very, very important. All right, it's going to even take a lot out of your hands. All right, you won't be shouting every time in rehearsals, do this, do that, do this. No, when you are keen, when your interest is, in developing them from the onset, you'll find out that a lot of responsibilities, gets off your hands because they now become really knowledgeable in what they're supposed to do. Do you understand? So it's very important you develop your people. All right. And lastly, I want to talk about something very important. All right. Very important. It cannot be overemphasized. All right. It is both beginning and the end of your preparations as a music director. And that is prayer. Prayer is one very essential exercise that must be engaged, because it holds the success of your mandate. And I'm not talking about prayers you do at maybe music rehearsals or in church. No, because how else would you want to make song arrangements? You just have to be on a frequency where, God speaks and communicates with you expressly without obstructions. Your spirit has to be in tune. All right. And of course, the study of the word is there. You have to have a word life. I shouldn't even have missed that. You definitely should have a word life, because all these are avenues that the voice of God can come through. And as a leader, as a music director, you have to have access to God's voice. These avenues where God speaks from, the word, and then through prayers. You definitely should be in tune. Okay, these are avenues you should not joke with, because they carry the success of your mandate, your call as a music director. All right, song arrangements happen from that altar. You should come to a point where everything for you as a music director happens on your altar, happens from your altar. Directions comes from your altar. Your moves, your decisions, your foresight, your inspirations, everything comes from an altar, the altar of God. The altar you have, that you come to meet with God, in prayers, study of the word. It has to come from an altar. Whatever comes from the presence of God is eternal. It doesn't die. That is one secret for an everlasting ministry and for a successful one, the voice of God. So this avenue, prayer and the study of the word, cannot be joked with for a successful ministry in music directing. So yes, we've said a lot in one video, and I'm sure it has helped you and blessed you. Please leave a comment. Let me know what you think about the video. Leave a like. Subscribe if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, remain blessed.